Hello everyone, I'm Brian Pippin and welcome to a special edition of JEA Savings Coach. This edition is all about hurricane preparedness, and as you can see, we're on the beach right now, and over there the seas are calm, but if a hurricane was coming, it would be a totally different story. JEA believes in being prepared, and that's why the same is true in football as the same for us. The best defense is a good offense. That means if you have trees you think might fall over in a storm, it's never too late to get them trimmed. As we saw recently with Tropical Storm Andrea, trees will fall on power lines and cause outages. If you have some trees you think will impact power lines, call us and we'll come to take a look. Remember though, your power lines are at the top of a pole. Phone lines and cable lines are always below that. So keep that in mind before you call us to take a look. Here's the number. 665-6050. That's 665-6050. JEA certainly practices that good offense is the best defense theory when it comes to hurricanes. That's why we sent 180 key managers to JEA disaster training in June. Keynote speakers from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, or NOAA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, or FEMA, and the City of Jacksonville's Emergency Preparedness Team spoke to JEA managers about storm readiness. The managers also attended breakout sessions on everything from working with storm-stressed customers to preparing their own families and households for a storm. If Jacksonville ever gets hit by a strong hurricane, you may be without power for an extended period of time. So a generator is part of a good hurricane plan so long as you run it safely. According to news reports, generators killed 5 people in 2005 after Hurricane Katrina. Generators can kill you, and they can hurt our JEA linemen as well. Here's David Reed with how to operate your generator safely.
The biggest safety concern with portable generators like this one is carbon monoxide poisoning. To prevent that from happening, never run your generator inside a closed garage or inside your house. You want to be sure to set your generator up in a well-ventilated area that's protected from the rain. If you don't have a good spot around your house, you may want to consider building a small generator enclosure. It's also not a bad idea to buy some simple battery-powered carbon monoxide detectors and install them in your home. They will alert you to dangerous levels of carbon monoxide. Never connect your generator to the home's electric system without an approved transfer switch like this one here. Otherwise, you could backfeed to the electric lines and hurt or kill a JEA lineman trying to restore power. If someone got hurt, you would be liable. Also, the time to get a transfer switch is well before a hurricane arrives. If you don't have a transfer switch, use a 3-prong grounded exterior extension cord like this one here. You want to plug your appliance or other device directly into the extension cord. You can use a power strip if you need to use more than one device at a time, but take care that you don't overload the circuit or the generator. Finally, never refuel the generator when it's running. Turn it off. Let it cool down for at least 5 minutes and then add your fuel. Keep a fire extinguisher nearby and don't store your fuel inside your house. Generators get very hot very quickly, so keep your children away from them. And watch out for burns, especially around the muffler when it's in operation. I'm David Reed.
And David says if you haven't bought a generator yet, but you plan to, make sure it's sized properly so that it has enough power for everything you're going to plug into it. For instance, if you have a well pump, make sure you can generate enough power to run it if the electricity goes out. We've got another important phone number. It's up on the screen now. This number is 630-2472, and it's for folks with special medical needs to call and register before a storm. The city defines special medical needs as someone who's medically dependent on electricity, such as life support equipment. The city will come and pick up and take you to a shelter during a storm, but you have to register first. In fact, you must re-register every year to remain in the system. So be sure and call 630-2472 and get registered if you're a special needs client or know someone who is. Coming up, JEA's power restoration plan after the storm. We'll talk to an expert next. Insulation is the single best energy efficiency improvement that you can make for your home. But how do you know if you have enough? What does a properly insulated attic look like? Today we'll review the different types of insulation available to you and how they are rated, how to check the depth and quality of the insulation you already have, and if you want to add more to it, what insulation choices are the right ones for you. I'm Brian Pippin, Conservation and Efficiency Specialist with JEA, and this How 2 in 2 is all about evaluating your attic insulation. All insulation is measured by something called R value. Now the R value of a substance is its ability to slow down heat transfer through it. Things that have low R value, like metal, have no problem transferring heat, as you can see of this pot of boiling water I have here. But items of a high R value, such as cotton, I can use to remove this from the heat without getting burned. So how do you evaluate the insulation that you already have? It's really quite simple. You'll need a flashlight and a yardstick to make the job easier. Measure the depth of the insulation nearest to the attic access. Use your flashlight to look throughout your attic and note trouble spots where you don't have enough attic insulation. A good rule of thumb is that you shouldn't be able to see any of the drywall from the rooms below you or any drywall in the attic itself. So what type of insulation should you choose? It really depends on your goals for your attic. If you already have loose fill insulation, you can simply add more to increase the R value of its depth. Even if you have bad insulation, you can blow more loose fill insulation or bats over the top of that to increase the R value. I'm Brian Pippin, Conservation and Efficiency Specialist with JEA, and this How 2 in 2 was all about attic insulation. So what's JEA's plan for restoring power after a hurricane? Joining me now is Larry Pinkstaff, Director of Joint-Owned Electric Assets. Hi Larry, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Brian.
So Larry, when we're talking about restoring power, I'm hot, I've just lost my power. What is the actual restoration procedure? What do we do first? Do we look for homes or do we go to businesses? How do we restore power?
Well, the first thing we're worried about is life safety, Brian. So what we do is we have some standby crews that do nothing but answer a hotline for the sheriff's office and the fire department in case somebody's life is in danger.
Okay.
Along with that, we go down and restore power to hospitals, the Emergency Operations Center, and shelters that the Duval County emergency officials have set up for us. During that time period, we have engineers that have pre-assigned circuits, and they're doing damage restoration. And what that allows us to do is when the mutual aid crews from outside of Jacksonville that are on standby show up, we have work packages to restore the main power lines. After we get the main power lines restored, which helps us with traffic signals and frees up the sheriff's office, then we go into the neighborhoods and restore the areas with the largest amount of power we can. And finally, the people at the end are the onesie twosies, 5s or 6 people that just takes a lot of time to find those people and get them restored.
And usually those customers have to call in and let us know right at that point that they're still without power.
When customers see that a major area that they live in has power restored, that's the time to call us and let us know that they particularly don't have power, and that helps us identify them quicker and get them in the queue.
Another question that I get from customers all the time is, my neighbor next door has got power. How come I don't have power, right? If you turn on the neighborhood, it would make sense that everyone in the neighborhood would have power, right?
Well, in some neighborhoods, all the homes are on one circuit. And so when we energize the circuit, all those homeowners do have power. But in a large majority of our subdivisions and areas and neighborhoods in Jacksonville, part of a circuit will go up one street and part of a circuit may go on the other side of the street.
Okay.
So some people will be energized, some people will not be energized. However, and there could also be, Brian, there could also be a pole down the street that feeds a line of homes that they can't see from their home.
Okay.
And that's on our list to repair, and we haven't got to it yet. But also we can have a transformer problem. And so anytime a customer sees there's only 5 or 6 of their neighbors out and the rest of the neighborhood is energized, we may not be aware of that. We might have thought they got energized when we energized the circuit. They need to call JA so they can get on our list and we get them restored.
So it's not all the time just repairs that we can see right outside our front door. It might be something on down the line.
Yeah,
right?
it could be a mile away to 6 blocks away.
Okay. The other question that I have is, if I'm asked to leave because of a hurricane, so I evacuate, should I just turn the power off to my entire house, or is it okay for me just to leave it the way it is?
Well, you really ought to turn off the power to your main breaker.
Okay.
When you leave your house, you could have a coffee pot left on, could cause electrical fire. In addition, while you're gone, there could be damage to your house and you have live electricity there that could cause a fire. The same thing could actually happen with water. So when you leave your home, you ought to turn off the main breaker, shut off the main water supply. That way when you return to your home, when you turn those items back on, you can make sure everything's safe.
Sure. So I'm at home, the power's off, I'm hot, I'm sweating, I'm starting to get uncomfortable. Where do I get information about when my power's going to be restored? Do I flag down a truck? Do I go to JEA.com? What's the best place to get that type of information?
Well, there's many sources to get the information, but if the customers would go to JEA.com and go to their account manager profile, they can ask for these things and we can send it to their cell phone. We can send them cell phone messages, text messages, emails right to their phone. And of course they can get on JEA.com where the outage information is always live and we have an outage map to show where the outages are.
Thanks for being here, Larry. Great information.
Thank you, Brian.
Now for more information on what JEA can and cannot repair after a hurricane is JEA's Bruce DeWeck.
Starting from the street, the services, the wires that JEA serves your home with are JEA's responsibility. Once that wire reaches that masthead, that becomes the point of personal responsibility for the homeowner. The homeowner, if they have damage at that point, needs to get a licensed electrician to do those repairs. If it's the masthead, the riser, or the meter can. If it's the meter itself, JEA will handle that responsibility. Oftentimes, during a storm or right after a storm, if the trees are still on the lines and you still have electric service, then it's your responsibility as a homeowner to hire a licensed tree person to come out and remove those trees. If, however, those wires are down or damaged, then JEA will come remove those trees from your property. Typically, the homeowner is responsible for anything on their property under most circumstances. It's important as a homeowner to use licensed electrician or a qualified tree person to help you make sure that your electric service and your home is safe in all cases.
Toilets are by far the biggest user of water inside the home, accounting for nearly 30% of the average home's indoor water consumption. According to the EPA, by replacing older, inefficient toilets, we could save nearly 2 billion gallons of water per day across this country. I'm Brian Pippin, Conservation and Efficiency Specialist with JEA, and this How 2 in 2 is all about high-performance toilets. New high-performance toilets use an average of 20% less water than conventional toilets, while still providing equal or superior performance. An EPA WaterSense label toilet has been independently certified to meet rigorous criteria for both performance and efficiency. One high-performance toilet option available is the flapperless toilet. The flapper valve is the most common inside water leak, so this design eliminates the need for one because it uses a dump bucket technology. You no longer need a flapper valve to separate the water in the tank from the water in the bowl. The bucket holds just enough water for the next flush. There is very little difference in price for a flapperless toilet versus a conventional toilet with a flapper. Another popular high-performance toilet option is the dual flush. The technology is simple. One button for liquids and one button for solids. The idea being that you need less water to flush liquids than you need for solids, so in the end you use only the water you need. According to the EPA, if every American homeowner replaced their older inefficient toilets with WaterSense labeled toilets, we could save nearly 640 billion gallons of water per year, equal to 2 weeks of flow over Niagara Falls. I'm Brian Pippin, Conservation and Efficiency Specialist with JEA, and this How 2 in 2 has been all about high-performance toilets. So what else does JEA do to prepare for hurricane season? Here with me is the man responsible for it all, Ed Dendor, our Director of Emergency Preparedness. Thanks for being here, Ed.
Thank you, Brian.
So Ed, is there really that much that JEA could do to prepare for hurricanes? Talk about our emergency preparedness program.
Excellent question, Brian. As far as the emergency preparedness program goes, it's just not an individual, it's a team effort.
Okay.
Of course, every JEA employee is a part of the emergency preparedness program. We have various procedures that are in place, and in those procedures, how do we work with those procedures across the entire company, just not an individual or one department. It's the entire team working together.
And we do this year round. We just don't wait a couple of months before storm season, right? We're constantly thinking about what we need to do to prepare our infrastructure for hurricanes, right?
Yes, you're right, Brian. That team effort is not just an individual or a group up front, a month or 2 months, continuously year round. We're looking at the procedures. It's almost assimilated to a football team. A football team just wouldn't walk out and say, hey, we're going to go play a game on Sunday. They're constantly looking at better ways to play the game.
Sure.
We do the same thing in the back office. We continually test, and we also continually monitor other industries and what they're doing to how we can improve our industry as well when it comes to emergency preparedness for the eventual when something does happen.
And I've noticed that when you've let other employees know about us being prepared, that you mentioned the NIMS system and how we need to be involved in that. Can you explain a little bit of that to our customers, what that is?
Sure, Brian. Sure. NIMS is a National Incident Management System. It's not a system that JEA dreamed up on its own.
Sure.
It's a federal program that is set and in place where when municipals share resources, it's a common structure that is a set of common terminology. We don't come up with our own. We haven't developed our own unique system to manage an emergency, if you would. It's a system that's predicated on how does the entire nation work to recovery and then eventually getting our lives back to normal.
And for us to be successful, though, we have to move in lockstep with other city agencies, right? And that kind of lays that framework, I guess, for all of us to work and communicate together and move forward in lockstep.
Yes, Brian.
Okay.
The city has what's called an Emergency Operations Center. I'm sure you've seen it on the news.
Sure.
JEA has a similar EOC, Emergency Operations
A lot of
Center.
computers, a lot of phones, people talking, scurrying about, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. It's all about communications. When something like this happens, again, the troops, if you would, the
Sure.
team, the employees are out there and they deploy. They're doing their damage assessments. They're mobilizing equipment, mobilizing materials. And in that process, there's going to be things that they need. Sometimes we need it from the city or other agencies, and it's a conduit for us to communicate back and forth with the primary EOC or Jacksonville's EOC.
I've heard you tell us many times that it's not really the wind damage that's an issue, it's actually the flooding, especially if you have a slow-moving storm. Might not be a very large hurricane, but if it's slow-moving, drops a lot of water, flooding can be an issue for JEA. Well, how do we prepare for that?
Excellent question. Flooding is an issue for Jacksonville, very low-lying, a lot of low-lying areas. The city does what they can do to manage the streets and drainage. It is JEA's job on the water and wastewater side to pre-position equipment, pre-position personnel after the storm passes to try to get those systems down as quickly as possible so we can restore the wastewater system as fast as possible.
All right, Ed, here's your chance. You get to talk to all of our customers out there. What would you tell them about JEA's preparedness for that, hopefully, we don't have it, but that eventual hurricane that might hit the First Coast?
Beautiful, Brian.
Okay.
Two opportunities. The first one is on a personal level, if you would, when our crews are out in the field working, trying to get those lines restored, trying to get the water back on, they would love to be able to stop and talk, but the more time they spend talking to the folks in the streets and in the neighborhoods, it's less time that they have to move on to the next neighborhood to get that next neighborhood
Sure.
up and running.
Sure.
So if they can allow those customers or allow our folks the opportunity to do their work, and if the customers can't take the step back and let that restoration work occur. The second is, can't stress it enough, personal preparedness. Be prepared. When the lights and the powers go off, what are you going to do for a period of time without electricity, as far as drinking water, as far as medication?
Sure.
And you have to think about the entire family. What about the pets and the parents and others that are associated in your neighborhood? Sometimes it's the neighborhood collectively that works together. So think on a personal basis if you can.
Excellent. Good information. Thanks for being here, Ed.
Thank you, Brian.
And coming up, a digital photo album of Hurricane Sandy, courtesy of some JEA linemen who experienced it firsthand. The story next. Hurricane Sandy was the second most costliest storm in U.S. history. Utilities from around the nation converged on that region to help restore power, and JEA crews were among them, doing what they do best. Take a look.
By the time we got there, it had been 6 or 7 days since they had been out, and they were really just, they were starting to get to that breaking point.
Probably the most thing I remember though is the one lady that was just an elderly lady that had been out for 3 or 4 days, and as we turned her lights on, she just wept and cried and hugged all the guys.
I had one customer, he was 80 years old and blind, lived by himself. He didn't have power because they were waiting on an electrician to come out and replace one little part that he didn't need to have power, so we turned him back on. So, you know, we live to turn lights on. That's what we're good at.
I just want to say thank you for the work that you did on behalf of those up there that you helped, but really on behalf of JEA. You did us proud, you did the community proud.
There's a few of the apprentices that made the snowman at breakfast one morning, but they did a good job on it. But yeah, it was the first time I've ever worked in the snow. I've never worked in the snow before, because you don't normally associate hurricanes with snow.
It was very, very cold. Conditions weren't all that great. A lot of us slept in our trucks until more suitable, you know, sleeping arrangements were arranged. We do what we do best. We turn the lights on.
That's what we do.
People, you know, it's always good to help somebody out, help your fellow man out when they're down. And then hopefully in return, I believe that when you help somebody out, somebody will in return help you out.
That's it for this special edition of JEA Savings Coach. I'm Brian Pippin. Here's hoping that we have a very quiet hurricane season. See you next time.